Hello, so in this video I'm going to be reviewing this book here, The Restless Republic, Britain Without a Crown by Anna Keay, which was published in 2022. It was shortlisted for the Baillie Gifford Prize for non-fiction, and it's a really fantastic book on the period 1649 to 1660. I'd strongly recommend it to students of Stuart Britain or people who are generally interested in this period in British history. It's really accessible. It's very easy to read. It's, let's have a look here, 360 something pages. But I kind of worked through it pretty quickly. Really readable. And in terms of the big themes, I think it really covers this period of the Republic being such a kind of extraordinary period in British history. There isn't really a period like it, such kind of instability and chaos. It also, that in terms of the bigger themes, talk about the kind of political, social upheaval, also kind of populism and the impact of the press. So parallels with today, also kind of like legitimacy of governments. Again, parallels with today, and really fascinatingly, or what it does particularly well, I think, and why I liked it so much, was that it tells the story of the Republic through key individuals. So it's not just a summary of events, but it's actually telling the story through these key individual stories. So, for example, John Bradshaw, who oversees the trial and execution of Charles I, is kind of the first key figure we encounter, and we learn about his background and the impact of this on him. We also find out a lot more about kind of George Monk, who obviously was responsible partially for the ending of the Republic. Also, some lesser known figures like Anna Trapnell, who's a kind of religious visionary. She saw these visions that people would go to, and definitely I think her story really emphasizes the impact of this period on people's lives, on the way people thought about the world, on religion. We also get a discussion of Gerard Winstanley and the Diggers, which is really fascinating and actually more detailed than I'd read, I think, in probably anything else before. So it really kind of helped me understand the broader impact of the Diggers. Also, William Petty, who is a kind of scientist in Oxford, a kind of forerunner to the Royal Society, which was obviously established after the Restoration. And really interestingly, we've got a big discussion of somebody called Marchmont Needham, who was a kind of propagandist, a journalist, a pamphleteer, who originally was on the side of the royalists, but then changed his sides to become a propagandist, really, for the Republic. So really fascinating story, and just that emphasizes the importance of the press in this period. And again, there's that really useful parallel with today. Also, we can't talk about the Republic without talking about Oliver Cromwell. And here's another book about Oliver Cromwell, God's Englishman by Christopher Hill. This is a book that I greatly enjoyed. Obviously, it's mainly focused on Cromwell, and it does do it from a much more political angle, or through a political lens, whereas, as hopefully I've explained, this book, The Restless Republic, talks about social change, changing ideas, science, the role of women, the press, these things, whereas this book by Christopher Hill, although I would recommend it, it's very much about the goings on with the different, the various forms of parliament and politics. So I think this is a kind of broader, a bigger, wider angle lens, if you like, view of the Republic. So I'm just going to read a quote to kind of end this review, because I think when we study the Republic, we often think about, to what extent was it due to the actions of Cromwell that the Republic either survived as long as it did, or failed when it did. And just this quote on Cromwell, I think, really helps kind of pull these ideas together. So it says, "The problem was that ever since Ireton and Pride had purged Parliament in 1649 to push through the trial and execution of the king, in which Oliver Cromwell had acquiesced, England had been ruled by men whose competing priorities made an unstable compound. The desire for more powerful and active parliaments, for social reform, and for a quite different form of religion from the old Church of England could not easily be satisfied in a single government. The representatives of the people did not want the wholesale religious reform that the victors of the civil wars felt must happen, and were unconvinced about many ingredients of the programs for social and political reform. That the regime, or various versions of it, had endured so long owed a great deal to Oliver Cromwell himself. The variegated nature of his own character, country gentleman, seasoned general, and religious radical, enabled him to reassure enough people, be they committed Baptist officers in the army or conservative country people wearied by war, to prolong the enterprise. The steely, stabilizing force of the army had held the regime together, and he was its commanding officer. So this idea that Cromwell is the one that's holding together this kind of coalition, that he was the only one perhaps who could have done such a thing. So I'd as I said at the start, strongly recommend this book. I would add this to my list of books. I did a video on book recommendations for Stuart Britain. I'd add this to that list. And if you're interested in, as I said before, if you're interested in this period, the Republic, and perhaps some parallels with today, I did a video on that which I'll link to below if you're interested, or you're just generally interested in this period, I would strongly recommend it. So any thoughts on this review, on this book? If you've read it, I'd really like to know what you thought, or any other book recommendations. Please leave a comment below. Thanks so much for listening.